The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's November the 19th, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day and Lance Guidry's nomination for Time Man of the Year. And yes, I nominated him after leaving yesterday's press conference, Matt, because man, I love Lance Guidry. I mean, if we could talk to Lance Guidry every day instead of once a week, it would be just fine with me. He doesn't pull any punches. He lays it out there. He smiles through, what weren't very easy questions for him. And I would say after about 10 minutes, he couldn't get out quick enough. He said, man, you guys gave me some hard questions. But no, in all seriousness, it was our first chance to sit down with the coordinators and Mario Cristobal since the loss against Georgia Tech, which, stung the whole organization, without question. And, Mario said after the game, he wanted everybody to feel the pain. And I think everybody felt the pain. In fact, I got yelled at yesterday, Matt, by somebody in the program. I'm not going to say their name, but they yelled at me for my column that was on the website yesterday because I referred to them having been on vacation for the previous week. And that was just the choice of words that I used. Vacation. Yeah, like, you think we've been on vacation? Was the response. It was kind of like in jest. But so anyway, Matt, so we had a chance to talk to Mario yesterday. We talked to the coordinators. Obviously, a lot of Georgia Tech talk, a lot of what they've been doing for the last week in bouncing back from that game. And quite frankly, the proof's going to have to be in the pudding the next 2 Saturdays when Wake Forest comes to town. Hopefully, Miami will be very ready for this football game. I think they're going to kick the crap out of Wake Forest. I hope I'm right. But then the next weekend, I think the degree of difficulty is going to go up when they have to go to the Carrier Dome on Thanksgiving weekend to play a Syracuse team that just went on the road and beat Cal. So, let's start, Matt, with your take just on the whole day of conversations with Mario Cristobal and the coordinators.
Well, you deserve to get yelled at, quite honestly, and it doesn't matter about what you wrote.
In general. I know vacation was a terrible choice of words. I
said it has nothing to do with the choice of words. Just in general, you should be yelled at. Now, in terms of Lance Guidry, I thought that I really thought this was the best press conference he's had, and actually one of the best coordinator press conferences I can remember at Miami in a while, because it was honest. It was refreshing to see that. And yeah, he gets up there and he's laughing and smiling. I know fans don't like it. I don't like it, whatever. But once he actually got to answering questions, he actually answered the questions. He actually took ownership himself.
Yes,
of the problem. He said, we're not really changing anything. Like, he literally laid out the facts, which are true. Too late to change things. We are what we are. I didn't scheme well at all against Georgia Tech, which is true. He may as well have included the previous 5 games as well in that. And the players have to play better, and I have to coach better. Like, that's just all true. It's all true. And he can't really get into specifics. I was a little disheartened. He didn't mention Justin Scott. He mentioned Markeith Williams, Zaquan Patterson, maybe getting Damari Brown back and getting Elijah Alston back. He didn't mention, any defensive lineman that maybe can help out or already off a bye week, Oklahoma McConaty even, because what I was hoping to hear is we're moving Akeem Messidor to end. Tyler Barron now is only going to be playing in passing situations, and Justin Scott is ready to take over a larger role at defensive tackle, for instance. Something like that I would have been very encouraged by, because we know what Miami is with the personnel they played with all year and the defense that they're not changing all year. We know they're not a good defense, and they're just not going to be. And that's essentially what he told us yesterday, which is fine. Like, don't sit up there and be a politician and tell us how everything's so great and that something else is the reason why it sucked. He got up there and he said, I'm the problem, the players are the problem, the scheme's the problem, but we really can't change anything. We're not really changing anything. Now, which makes sense, because, somebody on the message board yesterday was saying, why don't they just go to a 3-4, to teach a brand new entire system during a bye week when players need to rest and recoup and coming off a loss. I mean, that's just, you just don't do that. You don't do that. That's a pretty good way to blow up your. That's pretty good way to blow up your final 2 games, quite honestly. But listen, so I did like that. The only other sort of caveat I have, and it does go back to you getting yelled at. These coaches need to relax because players sense, just like babies, right? If you're the parent and you're stressed out and frantic, babies, young children, they see that. Even adolescent children to teenagers, they sense it. And it affects them, not in a good way. And off this loss, these coaches seem to be a little bit on edge more than normal. Like, they're always a little bit on edge, but they seem to have really gone off the deep end a little bit more. Hypersensitive, talking about the outside noise, this and that, and just like sort of, I really can't quantify it enough. But even Mario standing up there yesterday and bringing up on his own how every season for the past 20 years, or a lot of them, have ended poorly. And his whole plan to avoid that is to just stress 1-0 in the next game. Like, coaches have tried to do that before, Mario. Listen, you're not breaking new scientific territory and going to win the Nobel Prize for this new approach in football, okay? It's every coach tries to do it. It's doing it that's difficult. And when we see this team come out against Wake Forest, which is not a good team, right? 4-6, they're better than they were supposed to be. They're picked 3rd to last in the ACC, 15th or 14th in the ACC before the season. So 4-6 for them is actually pretty good. And you mentioned, Syracuse scraping by Cal, which is 1-5 in ACC play, by the way. But Syracuse, matchup-wise, is going to be more of a problem for Miami. Wake Forest's defense, I think, is 128th out of 133 teams. Can't stop the pass. Pretty bad against the run. There's nothing about Wake Forest that scares you, really, except maybe, if their quarterback is back healthy, he missed most of the second half, and, if they can maybe run the ball a little bit, maybe they can get to 21 or 28 points. But, they're not stopping Miami's offense, No,
Cam Ward's coming out to try to throw 8 touchdown passes and get back in the high school.
If they want to, they probably could. And, Georgia Tech, we knew they were going to be a little more of a challenge. I was more surprised Miami lost just because you knew Haynes King was banged up. You knew that they weren't that good. They're good, but not that good. So that was a big shock. Wake Forest is not going to shock anybody. Syracuse, on the other hand, if Miami's defense doesn't get pass pressure, that's just going to be one of these shootouts. Syracuse is not bad. I think it was about 7-3. They're not a bad team. They're actually a pretty good team. They scraped by some not great teams by a few points, but so did Miami, right? So, and it's at Syracuse. That's going to be a really interesting game because unless SMU somehow decides to lose their last 2 games to Virginia and Cal, Miami can't lose a game. How disheartening would that be? And, the other thing that I want fans to keep in mind is the big picture, right? It's not just about these 2 games. Signing day is coming up really, really soon, believe it or not. They've moved it up, okay? For those who are not paying attention. The portal is opening up next month. The future is where it's at because I don't know if you agree with me, Gary, but I don't think Miami's winning a national championship this year. I don't think Cam Ward's winning the Heisman this year. Last I saw, Travis Hunter's at -500 and Cam's at plus.
They get in the playoff as the number 3 seed. They have as good a chance as anybody.
And Cam's at plus 1,400. Okay, so you think they can win the national championship?
I think they have as good a chance as anybody if they get into the playoff as a number 3 seed. They get a first-round bye. Okay. And it's 3. It's you win. I guess 2 games, and then you're in the national.
I don't disagree that anything can happen, but generally speaking, I don't think Miami has a championship defense. I think that the offense against Florida State and Georgia Tech has actually showed some holes. There's no perfect team in the country, but I also don't think the ACC is particularly good. I know you think they're great, but the ACC at this point,
let's say you get paired with Georgia, that's lost a couple times, that was losing to Tennessee the other night. I mean, are you scared to death of Georgia?
What do you mean scared to death? I don't think Miami wins that game.
You have to play them in the quarterfinals.
I don't think Miami will be favored.
Scared to death of Alabama?
I think Miami's probably a touchdown underdog in those games.
No argument, but they don't have to be scared to death. Is my point. I'm not here predicting they're going to win the national title. I'm just saying they don't have to be scared to go in the playoff.
Listen, every Miami fan's going to say they can win a national championship. I'm trying to be a realist. I don't think they can with a team that I've seen play for 10 games. I'm sorry.
And probably can't.
And the teams they're playing, I think, aren't particularly good. I think at the end of the day, the ACC make it one team. You know, if Miami wins the ACC title, I think they get 2. If Miami loses the ACC title to SMU, I think one team from the ACC goes to the playoffs. I think it's crazy to say that.
I don't know if SMU gets in if they don't beat Miami, because the ACC is lobbying
if
for
SMU has if SMU has one loss in the ACC title game and they don't get in, then the ACC should disband immediately. Because what's the point of being in that conference?
Well, they would have 2 if they lost to They would have 2 losses if they lost to Miami. They're not getting They're not getting into the playoff with 2 losses.
Yeah, I was thinking about their ACC. Happening. Yeah, I was thinking about the ACC schedule. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So there's no room for error. You're 100% right. These teams and the ACC, they're just all sort of the same, and they're either all great or they're all average or they're all bad. I just think they're all average.
Well, listen, vacation was definitely not a good choice of words on my part. I deserve to get yelled at. They've been working their butts off. They've been practicing. They've been looking for ways to correct the problems they had against Georgia Tech. The coaches have been on the road recruiting. Signing days coming up in a little more than 2 weeks. So they were very busy during the open week. And I half-heartedly called it a vacation, but it wasn't meant to be serious. But no, they definitely have not been on vacation. The thing that I found most interesting about Lance Guidry was that he gave enormous credit to his counterpart from Georgia Tech on the other side of the ball. I forget the name of the offensive coordinator at Georgia Tech, but they did. They put together a spectacular game plan, and it worked against Miami, and Lance Guidry was never able to adjust. He threw himself under the bus. He admitted that he was never able to adjust. He admitted that he got caught surprised by some of the things they were doing. And he complimented the quality of the game plan that Georgia Tech put together to beat him. And you're right, Matt.
How many times do we have to keep saying these other teams are taking it to Miami? I'm so sick of it. And by the way, one thing that did bother me, and again, I loved the interview he did with the media, but one thing that bothered me during it was he said on film, whenever Georgia Tech was empty, it had an empty backfield, they always passed it. But in this game, they didn't. Like, why can't you adjust for that in game? Why would you assume they're always going to pass out of that? Like, that bothered me because I would never make that assumption that just because, 95% of the time, whatever it is, that they're empty, that they're passing it. Like, it doesn't always, you have to be prepared for other eventualities. If you're purely looking at tape of previous opponents and not having your defense prepared as a holistic entity from the preseason, from spring to fall, for every type of offense they face, like, that's what you're supposed to sort of do, right? And then you fine tune it for each upcoming offense. But to not have something in your defensive playbook to stop an option run attack, which he said Georgia Tech essentially did, and they couldn't stop it because they apparently never prepared to play against an option run team. And then to not be prepared for an empty backfield where they run out of it, like, that to me seems like it should have been addressed in spring practice and fall practice, not even for this game plan. I can understand, like, okay, they don't show it, so you don't prepare it. But how do you not have something in your defensive playbook where your players understand, oh, that's what they're doing. We worked on it in fall camp. This is what we're doing. That's what bothered me. That's what bothered me. That was what bothered me a little bit about the press conference. Otherwise, I thought he really was really good. Otherwise,
yeah. But so he didn't really suggest that there was a whole lot he could do about it, other than get guys to stop committing mentals and play better and coach better and show up better these last few weeks than they did in that game. And I'm with you. I would have been so thrilled to death to hear something along the lines of what you were saying. Yeah, well, we're moving Mesidor outside. Tyler Barron's just going to be a pass rusher. Bain's going to the, whatever it would be to shake it up. And we, in fairness, could see it against Georgia.
I mean, they don't have to share all their secrets.
They wouldn't be sharing it with us if they were.
We're making some personnel changes. We're keeping it to ourselves. Like, they can say things like that, and they didn't. So
maybe, and maybe we'll be surprised that they will. But that's, like you said, it's not really Miami's style. And it is an interesting point you just made. I'm trying to process it. When teams game plan for Miami, they do put wrinkles in. They do shake it up. And make it different. Miami seems to show up and run its offense and run its plays and expect those to be good enough. And listen, they worked 9 times this year, so when you can't knock it. But Shannon Dawson also met with us, and the offense was not at its best against Georgia Tech, and they definitely, have things that they can get better at. No argument as well, Matt. But like you said, Wake Forest does not have a very good defense, so it's just going to be about going back out there and getting back to being efficient every single time you get the ball, and not having empty possessions. And didn't really get a chance to ask him about the bubble screen, but like, for example, in the Georgia Tech game, the bubble screen play that got blown up 3 times literally blew up 3 possessions because it put them in bad third downs and that they didn't convert. And then, of course, they weren't converting third downs the whole night. But anyway, so the point of all this is the stories are on the website. The coordinators did come out and answer every question. They didn't really avoid the questions, and that's to their credit. And you might be a little bit dismayed that everything's going to be the same, but maybe you'll be surprised as well. All right, Matt. So another big topic of conversation with Guidry was communication, and I asked them, I struggle with the fact, why are they having communication problems in November? They had spring practice, they had summer workouts, they had fall training camp, they've played 9 games. Why would they be having communication problems on defense? And Lance Guidry basically suggested that the problems arise when the wrinkles get rolled out, and they're not seeing what they prepared for during the week. They're seeing something different, and adjustments have to be made on the fly. I don't know. I'm a little befuddled by that, to be honest with you, because to me, it has to be simpler for those players to adjust. They can't just be, oh, geez, we're seeing something new, we're going to start busting all over the field, we can't adjust. So hopefully by Saturday, they come up with a little bit different of approach to that, because they will see different things now from these other teams down the stretch that have game film to watch, for starters. And again, Mario Cristobal brought up the fact that he knows that opponents are comparing notes with each other and helping each other game plan for Miami. This is the second time now in a public forum that he said it on Monday. So, maybe there's some things they can do, Matt. Like maybe they can make things a little bit more simple in the secondary when they do have to make these adjustments. But I just thought that was a little bit strange that after all these months of practices and drilling and repetition, that they're having to spend part of an open week in the middle of November working on communication.
Yeah, and it's not fair because, when Mario's friends in the coaching circuit call him up, hey, I got the other team's playbook, do you want it? He says, no, I don't want any. I don't want any tips. I just want to go into the game blind. So it's not fair because Miami's not taking any tips, and all the other teams have Miami's playbook, Miami's plays. They know exactly, the script for the first 10 plays. It's not fair. Miami would be beating everyone by 40 points except for that. Now, as it pertains to what you were talking about with
communication,
with the communication. Lance Guidry says he wants the defense to start over communicating, which I don't even know the definition of that. Isn't that communicating too much? Don't you want the perfect amount of communication? You don't want to under communicate. You also don't want to over communicate.
He's not winning with you no matter what.
Communicate. Just communicate. How about that? Let's use that word, communication. I think the problem is, and it has to be, someone other than Francisco Mamanoa, because he's literally getting the play in his ear set. So he knows what to do, and he then gives the play out. It seems to me like the major miscommunications are all in the secondary, because those are the guys you see with their arms up. They don't know what the hell to do. And I don't know if the best offensive systems and defensive systems, from my very limited understanding as a 7-on-7 flag football star, who once broke his ankle in the third game, and the team got better after he was out for the rest of the year. Based on that, I would say the best offense and defensive systems, and no, I'm not talking about just on that. This is true, are ones that seem complicated to the opponent, but actually are simple for players to understand. And it seems like that is not the case on defense for Miami. I mean, either Miami's players are really not too bright, or the system's not not a good fit for really any team.
Well,
Right?
he did allude a little bit. He's obviously not going to mention names or anything, but he did say that in one of the scenarios that he rolled out, that if what they are being asked to do is too difficult for them, then as coaches, they have to look at that and adjust.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, but you don't want that in the first. Like that shouldn't be the case in the first place. And here's the other thing that really bothers me, and I know no one really talks about it, but everybody saw this coming, except apparently for the Miami coaches. Now that they lost, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we have to redo this. Oh, should look at that. Oh, let's do this. They should have lost 2 other games, but they didn't treat them like losses. And they just kept doing the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. And they had 4 really close games. They've given up 28 or more points in 5 of the last 6 games. But they won 5 of them until last week. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, the sky is coming down a little bit on us. I don't understand why coaches have this. And Lance Guidry is a perfect example of it. He'd come into the press conference after a really bad defensive showing and say, we won. That's all that we won. That's all that matters. It's not all that matters. I understand it's all that matters when you look at the ACC standings. But, past portends the future. It wouldn't have been hard for a genius or even a non-genius like Gary Ferman to have predicted the Georgia Tech game was going to happen at some point this season, simply watching the Cal game, simply watching the Virginia Tech game. You could see it coming just like a train down the tracks, but they didn't stop the train and say, hold on, let's act like we just lost and we got to revamp a lot of things here. Because they won, it was like, okay, we're good. On to the next. We'll just keep figuring out ways to win. Just game plan for that next opponent. 1-0, not 4-0, not 5-0, not, oh, it should be 2-2. It should be 2-3. That really bothers me because this Georgia Tech was avoidable. The Georgia Tech loss was avoidable if they had treated the prior games like losses that could have easily been losses, right? And looked at those much more judgmentally instead of the, oh, we won euphoria aspect of it. And the players just thinking, okay, we pulled it out. We're good. No, you're not good because look what happened now. And now all of a sudden, you got 2 games left in the regular season. Coach Cristobal is saying other teams have figured us out because they're sharing secrets. Like that's essentially what he said, right? And you're scrambling over a bye week.
Under his skin because he's mentioned it twice now. 2 weeks.
I know. So what does that tell you? That tells you that he's freaking out a little bit, that he thinks everyone knows their secret, right? The secret sauce to the Miami defense has been solved. That's what he has said now multiple times. That's literally the translation of him saying other teams are telling other opponents our secrets. They now have solved the equation of the Miami Hurricanes defense. Like that's pretty obvious.
Because they want you to lose. Yeah.
So I'm hoping, listen, Lance Guidry might be a great defensive mind. He might be a Matt Shodell defensive mind. We don't know which side of the spectrum he's on yet, but these last 2 games will tell us, because if nothing changes, if Wake Forest puts up 28 plus points, if Syracuse puts up 35 plus points, I don't see how you continue with Lance Guidry to next year. I don't know how you get there. And I like Lance Guidry a lot as a person. I think he's had a lot of success in the past. But again,
don't take him away from me, Matt. Don't take him away. I love his press conferences.
I spoke about it the other day. It's like that rookie, and he's not a rookie, but it's like that rookie hitter who's hitting 400, and then pitchers figure out he can't hit the outside curveball, and then all of a sudden he's hitting 180. Something happened between last year and this year, because I'm not going to go over every player again, but there's 9 players on defense who have either proven at Miami either at Miami last year or at other major programs last year that they are good players. And when you have 9 players, and you can add them up, I'm not going to name them all right now, but you have 9 out of 11 starters that are underperforming based on a year ago, that's a system problem. That's a coaching problem. And maybe it's not just Lance Guidry, maybe it's the assistants. You can blame whoever you want, but it's a problem is the bottom line. And I don't know if it's solvable, but if Lance Guidry can't figure it out,
a lot weaker than it was last year.
If Lance Guidry can't figure out these next 2 games, then I don't, I can't imagine Mario would move forward with him, just knowing Mario. That's not how Mario rolls.
31.7 points a game since ACC play began. But to me, the big difference is the secondary. He clearly is not comfortable with the secondary. They're not performing for him, and he's not running his defense. We're not seeing the safety involved in blitzing like we've seen last year from Lance Guidry. We're really not seeing a lot of attacking defense at all, quite frankly, every now and then. But he's playing very basic schemes clearly because that's what he feels like they might be able to execute. But then when teams come up with wrinkles that they roll out on game day, it's taking way too long to adjust, if adjustments ever get made at all. And that sums up the issues of the Miami defense. But there is some good news, and that is that Damari Brown might be back for this game. And he's been practicing, and there is an urgency to get him back in the lineup. It was believed going into the season that he was one of Miami's best defensive backs, and was sidelined, I think, during the Florida game, and has not been seen since. And Matt, to get a big corner that can cover back, if Damari Brown is what we believe Damari Brown to be, could be, a big part of a resurgence here of Miami defense the last couple games.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the most egregious things Miami did last year was when they went into the portal to try and get a cornerback, which they desperately knew they needed. They fell back on this whole, right? It's like you get the Houston guy on offense, you get the Marshall guy on defense. Well, they got De'Ani Hill, right? Because he played at Marshall for Lance Guidry, and also for the cornerbacks coach. And they're like, oh yeah, he'll be great. So they take him, but he's not great. As a matter of fact, he's been pretty bad. And, he's allowed 239 passing yards against, 16 to 28 completions, touchdown. Pretty bad grades, honestly. Not that they matter for most people on Pro Football Focus, but like that's the sort of it's almost like hubris for those of you that follow Greek mythology. Where God comes down to earth and knocks on your door and says he's really hungry. Can he have a little bit of food? And you're like, screw you, man, get out of here. And it turns out it was Zeus. And then you get struck by lightning. Well, Lance Guidry's gotten struck by lightning at cornerback because, in part, Damari Brown got hurt. Now, whether Damari Brown was going to be good or not, I don't know, because he really did struggle. Until he was hurt in Florida, he actually was not very good in the Florida game.
Florida was targeting him.
They were, correct. I was about to say that. They were targeting him on purpose with success. So I still think he's great, but I thought that Daryl Porter was going to be really, really good, right? Because he was really good last year. Fans, I don't know if fans remember before the season, there was people on our message boards and out there in the universe on the internet that were like, Daryl Porter is going to be an All-American. Daryl Porter is a shutdown cornerback. Nobody can throw on him, that he's elite. And he's been one of the worst corners in terms of being targeted that I can remember in a long time at Miami. He's allowed 413 passing yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions, 34 of 52 completions against him, 66%. I mean, that's about as bad as it can get for a cornerback. And I know they probably played him out of position at nickel. Is that on the coaches? Probably. But then they put him at boundary last game and he wasn't much better. Like, his confidence must be shot. So now, yeah, you get Damari Brown back, but who's playing with him, right? You got OJ Frederick. Do you put Damari now at nickel? Like, I don't know that Damari belongs at nickel, but you can't put Daryl back at nickel probably. Like, he's failed there miserably. Do you take Daryl off the field and use a different nickel? Like, I don't know what they're going to do when Damari comes back. I'm really curious to see if Damari starts, for instance, which he should if he's fully healthy, I assume based on the results. Like, it'll be Damari and OJ, and then who's the third cornerback / nickel? Is it Daryl Porter? Does he get benched? I don't know what you do with him because they were using 3 linebackers a lot last game. And 2 safeties, 2 corners, 3 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen. They were using that against Georgia Tech. Again, Georgia Tech was running a lot.
But Wake Forest and Syracuse will throw the ball.
Yeah, they will. But if Jalen Alderman's good enough and fast enough to cover a tight end, I don't think he's going to match up very well with Syracuse's tight end, for instance. Like, Gadsden's going to be a big problem at Syracuse. Like, there is going to be some matchup nightmares for the secondary, whether Damari Brown's fully healthy or not, coming down the road here against Syracuse and SMU. And like, look, I'm rooting for Lance Guidry as much as anybody. It's just like, I tell people, I'm not saying who I voted for president, but I didn't care which one won in terms of I'm rooting for them. If Kamala won, I'm rooting for her. If Trump won, which he did, I'm rooting for him. Like, that's how it is if you're a Miami fan. Like, Miami fans shouldn't be tearing people down. Like, Gary and I, we share our opinions, and I'm not going to be quiet if I think a coach is messing up or a player's messing up. Like, that's not my job, and I can get yelled at like Gary does. I don't care. I'm like, Gary, I don't care.
You don't get yelled at. I get yelled at on behalf of you. And I get the what the hell's up with Shodell?
I'll tell you the truth.
And I gotta wear my disguises and stuff so nobody notices me.
Here's the truth: people don't yell at me because they know I don't care. They yell at you because they know you care. If you honestly didn't care, like I don't care, like who cares if I get yelled at? What are you worried about? If I get yelled at, I actually enjoy that. Someone's paying attention to me for a change. Nobody ever pays attention to me. I need attention. That's me. So. But no, look, I'm rooting for the defense to succeed. I'm rooting for Lance Guidry to succeed. But what we've seen so far is not getting my optimism radar up very high.
Yeah. Well, one thing they got to do a better job of, obviously, is third downs on both sides of the ball. Not good enough for, I think, 4 for 14 offensively on third and fourth down.
That was the problem. That was the only problem, was the conversions on third and fourth downs.
And
by the way, I meant to ask you this. You know Mario as well as anybody, right? And I know Mario pretty well too, but not as well as you. The analytics aspect, right? I know he hired somebody to help look at the analytics. I personally, knowing Mario, have a feeling that he, and I don't have an analytics handbook. I don't know if there is one I can purchase. I'm really not interested in looking at it anyway. But I have a feeling he goes on his gut and his instinct and doesn't really look at analytics unless maybe it's like a fourth quarter, down by 4, third and fourth.
The analytics always tell you to go for it. If it's 4th and 2, they tell you that you have a 60% chance of making it, something in that ballpark.
Well, do you think he actually consults the analytics, or just on his own, or he just tells us he does? Hold on, or he just tells us he does, and then he just like his mind. We're getting the 4th and 4 from the 42. We're going for it.
I think they've got that, or do you think? I think they've got charts now on the sideline.
Do you think he uses them? Is what I'm asking you.
I think he has used them this year. Yes.
Okay. No, I mean, do you think that's what he bases it on?
I don't know. I don't think he uses them for every fourth down situation. I mean, there's some.
I don't think he ever does.
Well, he'll say to Shannon Dawson, if it's 3rd and 2, you got 2 downs. Things like that. That makes sense. Those aren't really questionable decisions, but like the one where he had 4th and I think 3 in the second quarter, late in the half, when if he gets a field goal, it becomes a 1-point game. That one is he should have kicked the field goal. I don't care what the damn analytics say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think the analytics say. I don't think analytics say to go for that, do they? That's what I'm asking you.
I don't know. They went for it, so they must.
4th and 3. I don't think you have an over 50% chance of making that, and you get 3 points to get it within 1 in the first half. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, hey, I saw one yesterday where I'm trying to remember what game it was.
Yeah, you posted
that. It's the Oregon game.
Yeah.
Oregon was up by I think 3.
Yeah.
And they faked the field goal, and chose not to go up by 6.
Yes.
I mean, insane. I mean, like
I watched that game because my son goes to Wisconsin. I was as surprised as anybody, but I don't know if you watched the whole game. Wisconsin's offense is so bad, they have a better chance of returning a kickoff for a touchdown than moving the ball 30 yards down the field from their own 6-yard line. So like I didn't really think like, oh, what an idiotic thing to do. The only thing I might have taken issue with was why take your offense off the field? Like the chance of you surprising them in a short field with with your snapper, with your holder running the ball. Like I would just assume leave your offense on the field and go for it. That was the only thing.
And I understand a touchdown ices the game, but you're also leaving yourself exposed to losing. You're lucky they have.
It's not like they had Tyler Van Dyke. If Tyler Van Dyke's there, Wisconsin wins by 40.
Yeah, well, their offense is pretty bad. They fired their offense coordinator.
They have some Mordecai. Who's their quarterback? Their quarterback was so bad.
Yeah, he's horrendous. Well, now you see why they brought Tyler Van Dyke in.
He didn't even run over the job. They announced it like a few days before the first game. It was close.
They fired Phil Longo after the game. So, all right, listen. I want to discuss something because I haven't written a story about it because I wrote a story about it a week or so ago, and it ended up being a waste of time because he didn't make the cut for the finalists of the job. But Shannon Dawson's been, by way of his agent, has been floating himself for jobs. He tried to get the Rice head coaching job. Didn't, like I just said, didn't make it as a finalist. And now it came out, and I spoke to the reporter to kind of check out what the deal was. He's thrown his name in the hat to be the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Now, I don't understand what And I gotta, I didn't write a story about it because it's like we're not writing stories every week that Shannon Dawson's looking for this job and that job, because from what I understand, there is an extension on the table for him at Miami. Now, maybe his agent doesn't think it's for enough money. That I don't know. But it is interesting that Shannon Dawson's name is suddenly being floated for different coordinator jobs. I've heard if LSU comes open, that could be one. He is a Louisiana guy. What do you think, Matt? Like,
well, I don't
the
think
timing's horrendous.
You say he's throwing his hat in the ring. I think it's more a case of he's running the #1 offense in the country, and other programs are interested in him. Which is fine.
The terminology. Listen, the terminology that it's being presented with is Shannon Dawson is interested in the job. That tells me that his agent has thrown his name in the hat.
Okay, I'm sure it started on the other side as well. Right? It's reciprocal, possibly. But my point is, Shannon Dawson, like, we're just not used to this at Miami. We're not used to having a coordinator that's that good that he can become the head coach at SMU. Right? That's the only other one I can think of where it's like a guy actually left voluntarily for a promotion.
And we didn't know how good Rhett Lashley was at that point.
And if I'm Shannon Dawson, just from a personal, right, that's true. From a personal selfish standpoint, you are never going to have a better offense than with Cam Ward, the best quarterback in the country, right? Third in the Heisman, but the #1 quarterback. The best quarterback in the country running your offense with Xavier Restrepo a senior, Jacoby George a senior. I mean, Isaiah Horton looks really good. You have an NFL level tight end, a really good offensive line. Your offense will never be better. 2 great running backs, including one who was a stud at Oregon State.
Yeah, all they're missing is an alpha receiver.
So,
Mike Irvin, Andre Johnson, that type of dude.
They have a guy who has more yards than Andre Johnson. Anyway,
but you're not comparing Restrepo to Andre Johnson and Michael Irvin, I hope.
No, of course not.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah. Because Xavier's much better than them. Why would I compare Xavier to them when Xavier is so much better than Andre Johnson and Michael Irvin?
I got in trouble last year when Cam Kinchens was being compared to Ed Reed and Sean Taylor, and I was puking. Okay, and I just flat said no.
You need to stop riffing on poor Cam.
I'm not. Anyway, he's having a nice year in the NFL.
He's having a great year. Anyway, so listen.
I can't get over how they're throwing the ball to him every game. I mean, just stand at the ball.
He's in the right place at the right time for a reason.
Right place at the right time. Yes, he's having
unlike
a great
Miami
year.
Safeties who are in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I still say he doesn't belong in the rafters with Ed Reed and Sean Taylor. And no, Xavier, as great as, and I love Xavier, the greatest kid in the world.
I was kidding.
Harder than anybody you'll ever see. He's breaking every record. He's not Michael Irvin or Andre Johnson.
I was joking. So
or Reggie Wayne, or I mean, you could go on and on. Yeah. So
Shannon Dawson has an opportunity to get himself into perhaps a better situation. He wants to position himself for a head coaching job eventually, right? If he returns to Miami next year, which he might. Will the offense be as good as this year? I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. No, because to be better means you have to be. I don't know what's above 1. What's above 1? I'm pretty sure 1's the best you could be. So he can't be better. He could be the same. So if you want to be a head coach, your resume now says, I'm the hottest offensive coordinator commodity in the country because I run the #1 offense in the country. I took a program that had an offense that sucked last year, and now we're #1 in the country, and I'm willing to come to your program for $10 trillion and 14% of the athletic department's budget, and I will be yours. But seriously, like this is what happens in college football. This is what happens in professional football. When you have a great year, you either get a huge raise and a contract that locks you in, where everything's basically you get to say for if you want to leave with a small buyout, that sort of stuff, or you leave. And I'm not sure if Mario Cristobal treats, or thinks of Shannon Dawson as the best offensive coordinator in the country, because Shannon Dawson, I think, does right now, right? Shannon Dawson runs the #1 offense in the country. Ergo, I am the #1 offensive coordinator in the country. And I don't think I believe that. I don't think Mario Cristobal believes that. I don't think Mario Cristobal wants to pay him like he's the #1 offensive coordinator in the country. But I think that Shannon Dawson believes he should get that kind of money. So I don't think, I don't think Shannon Dawson's going to be back. If Shannon Dawson gets the right offer, I don't think Miami matches it. I don't think he's back.
Oh, it'd be interesting.
If he doesn't get the right offer, he'll be here. I mean, if he's stuck here, next year, he's stuck here. That's the options.
I don't like the timing, but it is his agent's job to get him the most money he can get. Maybe they didn't like Miami's offer. We don't know. And
the timing's the same for every coach. It doesn't affect the team. I know people want to say, "Oh my God, the team's going to freak out." If he left, it would affect the team. If he took another job during the season, it would affect the team. But his name being flung out here and there, players don't care, man. The coach always says, "No, it's not true. Don't pay any attention." And the kid, the college kids, they don't care, man. That's not what they worry about.
Yeah, I agree with you. And some fans were concerned about it, but I don't think that you have to worry about that. I just thought it was interesting that his agent clearly is putting his name up for jobs. And
guess what? If the agent didn't, his agent should be fired. I mean, when else is Shannon Dawson going to be a hot commodity right now?
With Shannon's blessing, okay, and
of course.
And it tells me that Shannon's not sure what he wants to do. And you're right.
If I win the Pulitzer Prize tomorrow, I'm coming to you and I'm saying, listen, I got 14 other jobs that I'm applying for and I'm interested in. You better lock me up, Ferman, because $14 an hour, it's not going to do it. It's not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, and you make a good point. Like, he's only got one way to go, and that's down at Miami. And his offense isn't as good as this ever in the future. People are going to be pissed. So it's like, I get the whole thing. It's just I thought it was interesting, but I didn't want to write a story about it because I wrote one when he tried to get the Rice head coach.
You don't want to get yelled at. That's why you didn't write it.
No, I'm not going to write a story every single time his agent throws his name out there. He didn't even make the final group at Rice. So that was my one free publicity story. Woohoo, hey, you might want to pay Shannon more money because he's out there on the job on the job market. But I'm going to leave it to his agent from here. All right, we do have a few other things on the website today beyond all this coordinator talk. Usual assortment of recruiting stories. We got a story on 4-star athlete Braylon Calais. He got an offer from Miami in the summer after he had a great performance at Legends Camp. He's a top 70 prospect in the 2027 class. He will be back in the house on Saturday for the Wake Forest game. We catch up with him, see how things are going in his life. Also with 2026 Jacksonville Bulls, top 50 prospect Simeon Caldwell. This guy's being recruited by everybody in the country. But Miami is a strong contender early on. We check in with him and see how things are going there. A couple program notes for this week. No CaneSport Live show tonight. We'll return next week with CaneSport Live. There will be a Lamar Thomas show on tomorrow night, Wednesday night. And you guys can hopefully join us for that, 8 o'clock Wednesday night. If you have not been watching the Lamar show this year, you're missing out. They've really been pretty darn good, and they're archived on our YouTube channel. You can go, if you have a slow day, you can go back and watch a little bit. I don't think you'll be sorry there. Listen, if your subscriptions literally allow us to do what we do every day on this show on our website. So if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, now is the perfect time. You got the end of the season coming up. You've got signing day coming up. You've got the portal window coming up. Then you've got the start of 2026 recruiting coming up. There is going to be tons of action. No better time than now to become a subscriber at CaneSport.com. Your subscriptions do mean everything to us, and we would really appreciate it if you are not yet a subscriber, that you pop on over to the website and join our great community of fans on CaneSport.com. And if you're on YouTube right now, please hit your subscribe and like buttons. It does help us in growing our audience on YouTube. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Matt looks like he's fallen asleep there, so we're going to let him go take a nap. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thanks again for joining us, everybody, and we will see you next time.